tu mis, hein? À Tahiti ou à Paris?
I think I'm in need of a sound engineer for my levels. So I don't know. I'm still working on that. 122 sessions in, and I'm still working on sound issues. Hello, people, good R users. My name's John Kulas. I'm a 20-year professor of industrial and organizational psychology, about a 3-minute abuser of your eardrums, 12-year user of R for normal statistical applications. But for the majority of those 12 years now, for 8 or 9 or 10, I've been executing entire projects from within the same environment that I specify in my R script. And so this is sometimes referred to as literate programming. It's consistent with this idea of reproducible research. And I structure all my work using kind of these literate programming principles and tools that are now widely available, open source tools that are available to all of us. And I'm here every week just promoting this way of structuring your work because in the social and behavioral sciences and management sciences where I come from, there's not a strong tradition of this. And I really, I hope that in 5 years, if our AI overlords haven't completely taken over the world, I'm hoping that people in the social, behavioral, and management sciences it becomes a little more common for them to at least know that these capabilities are out there and maybe even think about executing papers and slide presentations and reports and the kind of stuff we do in the social, behavioral, and management sciences. I hope they try to execute those from within the same environment that they're specifying their quantitative analysis. So, hello, welcome, thanks for coming. I'm here every week. Sometimes I'm joined by some compatriots that also do this and have experience doing this. But honestly, I just want to be here for an hour with this kind of idea that the door is open if anyone's out there and they're interested in this or maybe just curious about it and you want someone to bounce some ideas off of that's not an AI bot. I am a real person. Many people, I do have associates that I interact with in the real world that can vouch for me. and they'll probably apologize for the fact that I am in fact a real person. But I'm here if anyone has any questions and they want to, um, and they want to engage in that way. Please just use the comments, use the chat, and I'll try to keep an eye on that. In the absence of that, what we've been doing is we've been focused on just little kind of targeted areas of capability using R and using the scripting platform that most people think of as or associate with analytical purposes and reasons for engaging with. Um, we've been focused on just little focused capabilities of these platforms, of these capabilities. And so today we're going to take a little break. So today, instead of looking at something very practical and something that you can incorporate in your day-to-day work, I thought we would look at something kind of topical here, at least in America. So here in America, there's a big sporting event going on, and we'll talk about this when we get to it. But we're going to do something a little fun today. So I don't know. I think actually there are some extremely practical things that you can extract from what we're going to do. Because I'm going to show. I think I'm going to show what might be new to some of you. I'm going to show a way to extract functions from packages instead of using packages themselves. So I think that is definitely something that if you're not familiar with it, if that's something that you have not done or maybe are curious how to do, stick with us because that'll definitely be something I think we're going to do tonight. But I'm kind of I'm not a gambler, but I do enjoy American sports, and if it's at the collegiate level, there's another level of kind of enjoyment that I, for whatever reason, historically I've had with that. So we're going to talk about and we're going to explore a few different ways to specify your own NCAA tournament brackets. Now, I don't intend to, unless someone pops by and wants this, I don't intend to go over statistical modeling of predictions in terms of tournament performance. I do that, and we can do that if someone pops by and is interested in that. But because these weekly sessions are focused on authoring and creating something that maybe traditionally you don't associate with RStudio or Positron or Jupyter Lab or these environments within which most people go to script analyses. Um, because of that, I thought what we would focus on is not the statistical prediction and the modeling of who might have a higher probability of winning this thing, but just the actual visual and document specification of what a bracket looks like. And that's what I intend to focus on, unless someone pops in and has a question and says, hey, let's do some statistical modeling, and I'm okay with that. We can do that as well. Again, open-ended in terms of what we do here each week. Because this is open-ended, let me first say that the slides that you're seeing, they're of course authored using these processes. Everything I do is authored using these processes, other than email. Email is the one thing that I haven't yet fully executed from within RStudio. Everything else I do within RStudio. But the slides are available as a hyperlink in the comments, in the chat. There is also a link to a walkthrough, a tutorial if you're interested in this, but don't know if you want to jump straight in, feet first, head first, whatever the expression is. You can go ahead and just kind of copy and paste what I have in that tutorial into your local session. The only requirement there is that you have Quarto, the piece of software that we've been using most frequently to help us produce these nice products like what you're looking at right now in terms of the slides. So as long as you have Quarto installed, you can go ahead and follow that walkthrough. If you have any difficulty with that, just drop me a note, leave one in the comments, or you can drop one to the video as you watch it, and I get notification about that, so I should be able to address it. Okay, because these are open-ended. Oh, by the way, so if those links aren't available in the comments, when you get to this video, look in the description of the video. I've put them down there as well. Okay. So because we do this open-ended and I don't really know where, especially tonight. Tonight, I have no idea where this is going to go. I have a thought in my mind of what we're going to cover, but again, if someone pops in and says, "Hey, let's do some statistical modeling," I'm game for that. We can do that. But because of that, we do at the beginning of each subsequent week, we do a more traditional kind of linear presentation of the takeaways from the topics that we actually covered. So let's get our transition into what happened last week.
There are those who say the richest man in England was the Earl of Crankcase. I use the past tense because one day in back of his ancestral home, Abominable Manor, the Earl decided to take a swim.
I shall take a short dip and then have tea.
Unfortunately, the Earl was absent-minded. Not only didn't he have any tea in the house, but he didn't have a pool. The effects of the tragedy were far-reaching. Before the week was out, the 3 surviving members of the Crankcase family gathered at the law firm of Lamb, Curry, and Rice for the reading of the will. These were distant nephews of the late Earl, Filcher, Belcher, and Jay.
Oh, how we grieve our dear uncle's passing.
Oh, how we'll miss him.
Oh, how much did he leave us?
Nothing. The entire estate, consisting of a £1 million note, goes to the new Earl of Crankcase, and this is what he looks like.
The only existing photograph was a glossy 8x10 of a 12x4 foot.
No, I don't want to spoil anything, and I haven't looked ahead, but it looks suspiciously to me like that foot might be a moose foot. If anyone else has that impression, I'm with you on that. We're done with the Oogle Bird, by the way. Those of you that were following the storyline of the Oogle Bird. Oogle Bird made it back home safe and is oogling, wherever he or she. They refer to him as a he, but he lays eggs. So I don't know. It's a cartoon. What do you expect? But the Oogle Bird is safe, and now we're on to this inheritance for the crankcases. Some interesting name. For whatever reason, I get the impression that Rule Britannia might have something to do with it. But I think we're about to go into like a British adventure. So maybe I'll try to get some Monty Python themed drops here for the next couple of weeks. In the absence of that, so what we did last week was we looked at some ways to facilitate the citation, specifically of packages that you use as you're crafting your document. And so we've spoken frequently on these weekly sessions. We've spoken about just using traditional citations. So these would be articles that you hopefully read and then extract information from and then give citation to in terms of building your own report or building your own paper, documenting and supporting whatever it is that you're trying to do. Sorry, I know I'm playing with this a lot today, but I got really twisted up in terms of my headset this week. So it looks like I'm being strangled by a snake here, more like a worm, I guess, a very anemic snake. So I'm a little bit distracted. But in addition to citing those traditional resources and references that help us as we create and support our products, increasingly we're using not just R as a platform, but we're also using packages that facilitate things that we're trying to do within R. So the Tidyverse is a very popular set of packages. ggplot is an extremely popular package that facilitates the specification and the execution of visuals in terms of graphs and figures. So it's always been recommended that as a social or behavioral scientist, it's always been recommended that we cite the statistical software platform that we're using to facilitate whatever it is that we're presenting, whatever it is that we're evaluating in terms of whether our project was successful or not so successful. That hasn't abated. We're still supposed to do that. What has changed, I think, a little bit is that if you're using R to help support your statistical side of things, you're increasingly going to have a laundry list of supplementary packages that specify functions to help you evaluate whatever it is that you're trying to evaluate. Probably speaking a little too generally here, but it's very common to use packages, as I know everyone out there knows, when you're endeavoring to do whatever you're endeavoring to do. And so ideally we're going to provide acknowledgement of the use of those packages, not just for the authors and the creators of those packages, but also for this concept of reproducibility. So for the ability of someone to go in and replicate what you've done and evaluate whether or not, or give a sense of whether or not what you've done maybe has some errors to it. Maybe there's something that could have been specified differently. Maybe the software has a bug. So this citation of packages is actually quite important, because these there is a bit of a regulatory kind of oversight of this, but not in the sense of technical accuracy. So it's important to cite the packages that we use, and not only the packages, but the versions of those packages, because those frequently are updated. So there are some automated ways to do this, and so there are some helper functions that are just terrific within R that you would use in a R markdown document or in a Quarto document. And last week we tested out Quarto, but I've used these for years within R markdown products, mostly papers. But the knitter package, which comes built into R, so this is not a package, it's KNITR. The double colons are signifying that that's a package. But the knitter package is one that comes bundled with R when you install R. Your R installation will include knitter, and knitter is the package that historically has facilitated the marrying of the analytical portion of R with the scripting or narrative portion of writing a document. And so the marriage of those two is facilitated through the knitter engine. And within knitter, we have a couple of functions. So the most direct one that is applicable for what we're talking about is just write_bib. And write_bib will create a bibliography file within your project directory. And on lines 7 and 8 here, you see a code chunk. And within that code chunk, I have the way in which you'd likely want to specify this function. So knitter : write_bib. And then there is a C in parentheses .packages command. And that C, the concatenate, we'll come back to in a second. Just take a look at the .packages command for now. This is a hidden function, so this isn't something that you're going to find a lot of documentation on. I stumbled across this years and years and years ago, but I love it and I use it. And what it does is it will locate all of the packages that you have loaded within your current Quarto or R markdown file. Within all the code chunks, it'll find those that are being used or those that are being called out. So you don't need to use a function within the package in order for the package to be recognized. You just have to load the library within your session. And so if you've specified that you're going to be using a particular library, then .packages will go find that version of the package and include that in whatever it is that you want to call the bibliography file. So that .bib extension is kind of important, so you're going to want to get in the habit of calling your files .bib files, just like a Quarto document is a .qmd, an R markdown document is a .rmd, a Word document is a .docx, an Excel document is a .xlsx, etc., etc., etc. PDF is a PDF, .pdf. The bibliographies for us, you're going to want to associate this extension .bib to them. And so you call this whatever you want in terms of this command. When you specify this write_bib, one of the most important elements is this last piece here in double quotes, where I'm saying what I want the listing of citations to be called. And the reason that's important is you're going to then use that within the YAML, within the front matter of your document, whatever it is that you're creating. And so the bibliography identified in your YAML should match the bibliography you specify in your write_bib command. Now, for most people, this .packages is going to be sufficient. So your write_bib command is going to be not concatenated, so you're not going to have a C. You're just going to have a .packages and then comma and then whatever you want to call it, and then call it out within your YAML. There is, within this write_bib function, there is the allowance that you may want to also acknowledge a package that you haven't necessarily called out within your document. And if so, you can just just line those up. So that's why we're concatenated here, is just allowing for the possibility that there's a package that you might want to call out that isn't within a code chunk. You know, eh, what I would probably recommend, you can do this for sure. What I would probably recommend instead is just go ahead and load all the libraries that you're interested in citing within a code chunk, even if you're not using a function from them. Now, ggplot in particular, this is one that there's so many functions in it. There are some functions in ggplot. There are some terms within ggplot that are shared across different packages. So I can see where maybe you wouldn't want to do that. But that circumstance aside, I think either way you can generate a bibliography either way. You can say this isn't here, but I want it, or you can just go ahead and put it in your document. It's not gonna, for the most part, it's not gonna hurt anything. So this one in particular, the stop packages from Knitter is just exceedingly powerful and nice. There is a similar function within Papaja, and the Papaja function, I don't have it specified here. You'd have to go and take a look at last week's. Go ahead and take a look at last week's session if you're interested in that, or just follow the hyperlink that I have here. I believe there's a hyperlink. Yeah, there's a hyperlink on site R, and the command I'm thinking about is rrefs. So rrefs does something very similar to write_bib. It's just from a different package. As a matter of fact, my recollection is that r_refs takes care of this for you, so it actually includes that .packages command. So again, there's multiple ways to do all this. The one thing that is most important to acknowledge from the Papaja package is this cite_r function, and cite_r is so awesome. It's so cool. I love it so much because it's really focused on you writing the acknowledgement. So Knitter and write_bib does great at giving us a reference list, but if we want to use it, if we want to specify it, you can literally just say we used, and then inline code, cite_r, and then the name of the bibliography that contains your package citations, and this is what you get. So you literally get this. Here's my we used, and then everything else that comes after that is from the function. So I didn't explicitly call out any of these. It just so happened that the base version of R, as well as ggplot2, lubridate, Papaja, and tiny labels were all packages that were used in the project that I created this bibliography from. And I just created the bibliography using the write_bib command. So cite_r, if you're not using it, but you be aware of it and go ahead and use it. Now, the one thing I see here that I forgot, I guess, is I should have put a period after this on the left here. So I say we used this. After the inline citation, I should have put a period because there's no period here at the end of this paragraph. But if you have a complex project, you know, the listing of packages can be fairly extensive. And so this saves a lot of time. And not only does it save time, sorry, I'll clear my throat again. Not only does it save time, by the way, I forgot to do this, my bad, Jono. So I have my quota of 3 that I'm supposed to do, and I've been really bad about it. But if you're watching this, please give a like and think about subscribing. Appreciate that. So that made me forget what I was going to talk about. But these listings can be quite extensive, and this cite_r package, this cite_r function really saves a lot of time. I guess the other thing that I wanted to say was there's no need for you to go in and auto update anything. If you update packages, if you go into your R session and say, oh, I see that ggplot's out of date, I want to update it, and then you run your entire program or run your entire script, that new package, that new updated package is going to be reflected within your paragraph, your text paragraph here that is called out by this cite_r function. So use it. If no matter what you're doing, if you're not doing a traditional paper, if you're writing something like a technical report, man, this goes right into an appendix. It doesn't need to be focused. It doesn't need to be something that is key and central to your document, but it's so easy to put in there. It it literally is just a few words. We use, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 words. 5 words gives you all of this. So use CiteR, please. And then some other options that I intended to look into, but we didn't have enough time, so I didn't. So we didn't go through these last week. What I did here was I just pulled for you what I thought were some of the kind of additional kind of extra above and beyond capabilities of Knitter and Papaja that would be reasons for you to maybe want to consider these. And so one of the things that Grateful does, Grateful was kind of a neat package because it facilitates, it has functions in there to give you a table. So instead of just giving references, you can generate a table as well. And this is an example of what a table might actually look like from the Grateful package. So it gives you, and of course, the great thing about our Markdown and Quarto is by default they're going to alphabetize these. So it gives you the package name in alphabetical order. It gives you the version number that you have on your system that you're using within your project. And then the citation itself in terms of the authors of the package. And so, I can see, again, in something like a technical report, I can see maybe instead of a traditional reference list, I can see a desire to maybe do something like a table. And so Grateful would be an option for that. Again, there's very little that you do. The package takes care of this for you in terms of the packages themselves, the acknowledgement, but also the format within which those citations are specified. And then PackRet was another option that I stumbled across, but I have not played with this one yet myself. But one of the neat things about PackRet was we saw with the right_bib and the r_refs functions from Knitter and Papaja, the expectation is that your entire bibliography is going to be overwritten. And it's going to be overwritten into the packages.bib. And so whatever was in there before is going to be gone, because when you rerun your document, it's going to replace whatever is currently in there with what it sees within your project. Now, PackRet operates a little bit differently. My understanding, and again, I haven't tried this, but my understanding is that the packages that are going to be added to your bibliography are going to be appended. So they're not going to replace, they're going to append. So when we use Knitter or when we use Papaja, you're going to see within your YAML, you're going to see multiple bibliographies generally referenced. And so when I create my documents, I almost always have square brackets and then a listing of .bib files. And again, the YAML specification, the syntactic structure is a little different, so you need to be aware of that. So if we were to concatenate, if we were to include multiple things within a square bracket specification within R, I would expect to use the C function, so the concatenate function. We don't do that within the YAML. So within the YAML, I can put square brackets around packages.bib. Then I can just put a comma and put a bunch of different bibs in there. And so what we talked about last week was, well, best practice is kind of keep a separate bibliography for your packages and your R version, and then you can do whatever you want and keep your own and manage your own packages that are reflecting citations that are more traditional, so research articles that you want to acknowledge. Well, PackRat's going to be a little different. So PackRat should, and again, I haven't used it, but it sounds to me like what it does is it appends packages at the end of your bib file. So there wouldn't necessarily be as much of a need to keep separate bib files. You could keep one that has academic references in it, and then when you use the PackRat function, it should actually append your packages to the end of that bib file. Now, I haven't tried it. I can't vouch for it. But that's what it's supposed to do. So that's another option. Honestly, having done this for, if I've done this for 10 years, I've probably been using these Papa functions for 9.5 of those 10 years. It's one of the reasons I use this. It's one of the reasons I'm so geeked out about using this process is because it's because of that facilitation of things like citations. Okay. So that's it on package citations. I hope people use some of those kind of cheater helper functions, because the people that do the work on these packages, they are labors of love. They typically don't get money from it. Now there's exceptions to that, and there's kind of meaningful exceptions to that. But for the most part, these are people that are just kind of saying, hey, I found this and it facilitates the kind of stuff I want to do, so I'm going to make it available to other people. And actually, this is very, it's very germane, very relevant for what we're going to talk about today. Because what we're going to talk about today, what we're going to explore, are different ways to specify tournament brackets. And so, those of you that aren't familiar, this is a American thing. It's a cultural event next to the Super Bowl. So the Super Bowl is the National Football League Championship. It happens every year in February. You know, I didn't think about this, but they happen very close to each other in time. So that's probably the number one cultural sports event here in America. And I'm saying this because there are people watching this who aren't based in America. The probably number two cultural event that we have here in the United States American culture is the NCAA basketball tournament. This takes place over the course of about 3 weeks, and you start with, well, there's some technicalities here, but we're going to say you start with 64 teams. So you start with 64 teams and you get down to one. And so what you're looking at here visually, these are what are called brackets. These are, let's see if we can get a little bit of a close-up. These are representing 64 different teams on the left and the right. Let's actually find a bracket so I can show you what an empty bracket looks like. NCAA bracket. Look for images. And here we go. So here's a completed bracket. So this is a completed bracket from a number of different years. From what year is this? 2025. So this is last year. Go away, ad. We don't want you. I don't need to buy that. I just bought some clothes today. I don't need any more clothes. I bought jeans today. I went to Old Navy. Bought 3 pairs of jeans for $45.45. I was about to say something about it to the clerk, but she didn't look like she was in the mood to think that was funny. And it's not funny. I don't know. It's something about numbers when they repeat. I feel like it should be acknowledged. So this is a bracket. There are 32 teams listed on the left. There are 32 teams listed on the right. And as these teams win or lose, they'll be acknowledged within lines that converge toward the center. The center indicates the winner. The winner last year was Florida. That's what FLA stands for. They played Houston, H-O-W. H-O-U. I'm sorry. And there's names that are given to each of these columns here. So the outermost columns are called round 1. Second innermost columns, now we're down to 32 teams. That's called round 2. And then we have kind of colloquial terms for the remaining columns. So the third one, this is called the Sweet 16. There's 16 teams. If you win that, you get into the Elite 8. Those are the 1, 2, 3, fourth most inner columns. And then you have the Final Four. The Final Four are the 5th most entered columns. And then out of the Final Four, you have the championship game, which are 2 teams, and the winner of that is the champion of the bracket. And so this is so popular that even people that aren't, it's kind of like the Super Bowl. So even people that aren't into sports generally know about this, are aware of this. There are office pools. You don't have to be into gambling. It's just kind of a thing that's done. And so one of the kind of rituals here yearly, just before spring, is the passing around of an empty bracket. And so the passing around of an empty bracket just simply means I'm going to give these 64 slots to people and they have to fill them in. So it's your job to actually predict what's going to happen. So that's what we're looking to do tonight. Again, kind of a more whimsical thing than a practical thing. But we can do so much with R. I figured why not see if we can do this. So we're going to try to create brackets, and we'll create an empty bracket, and we'll also create a bracket that is pre-populated with the teams that are currently playing. And then if we have time, we also might look into a package that facilitates the creation of brackets that you create, you control, and you actually live auto update and populate. So if you were, for example, if you have something going on in your own life, something that you want to do tournament style, if you're in a very competitive family and you want to actually have a Tiddlywinks tournament, you can do that. So we'll talk about packages that can be used to facilitate all that kind of stuff. So the first one, there are hyperlinks here. I think the first one that we'll check out is not one that... So first of all, as we're waiting for this to load, let me just say that I did... I was gone this weekend, and ironically, the reason we're doing this is this weekend, one of the things that I did was I watched a lot of basketball with a lot of high school friends. And what I did while I had a little downtime was I did a little searching into what kind of existing support packages are out there that might facilitate our ability to create these brackets. And it turns out that there are a lot of kind of packages that have not been supported, have not been active for many, many years. So I just updated this week's slides not that long ago, maybe an hour or two before we went live here, because I found that one of the links that I had was a package that had not been updated for 7 years or 9 years, 7 or 9 years, a really long time. And so that may or may not be consequential. In that particular package's case, it was consequential because they did have some data in there that would have been nice to have access to. And that hasn't been updated, so it's out-of-date data. I'm seeing quite a few, I did see quite a few packages that had some association with Kaggle, so those kind of machine learning contests. I've done these and participated in these, and on the competitor end of it, more so than the organizer end of it, I've been involved with those over the course of the last 10 years or so. So it's not surprising that there are a bunch of packages out there that you can find that maybe I'm guessing here and I'm projecting a little bit, but in my head I see grad students and professors that are participating in these sorts of contests and then just kind of moving on as the grad students graduate. I'm projecting because I'm guilty of that too. I have repositories out there that do exactly that. And so there's a little navigation here in terms of trying to find something that's relevant. This one, bracket R, has not been active. So it was last touched 6 years ago. But I wanted to single this one out because I think this is a good skill that people can extract and should be aware of. The typical way to engage with these packages that are located and live on GitHub is to use this install_GitHub function, and this function exists within three different popular packages. There's a remotes, there's a pack, there's a DevTools. Historically, I've used DevTools. It doesn't seem to be much difference in terms of consequence for using these, but this will give you access to all of the functions within the package. And I guess one of the things I wanted to just kind of point out, if you use packages a lot but aren't familiar with the development of those, really what these are these are just bundles of functions. You can write a function within R. It's a challenging thing, so it's not something that in a classroom setting, it's not something I've ever spent a lot of time on. But it's good to know how to write a function just so you can recognize what packages are. And packages are just bundles of functions. So someone has said, hey, base R, I can do this within base R, but the code is kind of long. So why don't I simplify it and make a shortcut? And maybe other people would like to use that shortcut. The reason this is relevant is because this package, I don't find this package, again, it hasn't been worked on or touched for 6 years. The package itself, I'm not finding all that useful for what we want to do, but there's a function in here that's very specific that we might want to play with, and that function is plot turn. And so the reason I'm talking through this as much as I am is I want to show people that you don't need to always access the entire package. If you find something, if you find a single functionality that you're interested in, I mean, steal that. You can use that. So I'm going to show you how to use this function. The function itself, the way that these are written is the parameters, the things that you can change within the function are specified here on line 16. And so the number of games, by default, it's going to be 32. Play in, I'd have to look and see exactly what plan is doing. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure there. But the function itself is actually not that long. I think this is the entire function. Looks like bracket lines we may want as well. There's a looping through to plot. So it does look like the entire thing is probably necessary to do the plotting that we're interested in. And I would show you some documentation of exactly what's going on here, but because this package was abandoned, the documentation is really sparse, really lacking. There are not a lot of functions within this package. This is one that in my exploration, I did find, and I did see that it's probably appropriate for what we want to try to do. So I'm going to open up RStudio, and I don't need to be in a project directory for this. I don't even need. Normally, we would operate within a Quarto document or an R markdown document. This is just R script, so I'm just going to paste. I'm going to go ahead and paste that function in. Oh, I don't like that. Why is this coming in color coded? I'm wondering maybe if I shouldn't have pasted the whole thing. That's really odd. That's really odd. I'm going to do a Control A and run. Okay, I do have a function now, so that's good. So let's try. So now I have a function loaded within my environment. Let's try running that function. See what happens. Hey, there we go. All right. There's a bracket. Look at that, people. We have a bracket. Now, one of the reasons that I thought for this particular package that it might be better to steal the function than to use the entire package is because of the labels. So the labels are not parameters that I can change within the function itself. So this function is not intended, and we could add that. We could add that if we wanted to. But this function is intended to only take values of number of games and the play-in with regard to what the rendered product actually looks like. I'm actually interested in changing, let's see if we can get this again. I'm actually interested in changing the labels here. So where it says region W, region Z, region X, region Y, that's something that I want to be able to change for my purposes, which is an NCAA bracket. Now, I can see here immediately that there are 16 teams on the left, 16 teams on the right to start with, so there's 32 total. That should be okay because this function does take games as a field, so I should be able to repeat plot turn, and instead of 32, I should be able to put 64 in there, and there we go. Look at that. I mean, that's fantastic, just for someone else kind of doing the legwork for us and creating a function that gives us what we actually want. And this looks probably a little silly, but this is all I wanted, except for the region names. But I have the function available. I have two functions here, so I'm going to get rid of the second one. Where's bracket L? Is bracket L within? I don't think I actually need this. I'm going to take that off. What is that doing? I didn't realize it looks to me like there's two functions there. I'm going to rerun this just to make sure. Sorry. Just to make sure that that we have what I think we have. I'm going to plot it with 8. There we go. 8 looks kind of silly. Then we go 64, back to 64. Okay, there we are. So what I want to do within this function is I would like to change the labels. And so we can do, it should be in here. Here we are. On line 25, I have regions specified. And so those regions, for our purposes, what we actually want, we'll take a look at the 2026 bracket, see if we can see it. I want to, another reason to do this is these are actually surprisingly difficult to find. So the top one is called East. So I have East, then South, then West, then Midwest. East, South, West, and Midwest. Championship looks fine. So championship is what I actually want it to be labeled, so that's fine. If I rerun this function, turn plot, or plot turn, I'm sorry. Let's change the name of that, by the way. Plot turn 64. There we go. Now I have something more consistent with what I want. Although it didn't put them in the right spot. So it put them East and South and West and Midwest are flip-flopped in terms of ordering. So I want the top one to be East. So I would have to switch those. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to change the ordering here. I could also change this down below. So down below it's going to say where it wants to take these from. Either way, it doesn't really matter. And of course, spacing in R doesn't matter, but I like to be neat with my specification of things. So I'm going to run that function again. Each time we change it, we're going to want to rerun the function because the function is saying how things should look, how they should be specified. Oop, I brought the wrong thing over. Sorry. That's going to be, that's our Doctor Strange thing. So when I draw that over, that's when we run into Doctor Strange issues. So I think that's what we actually wanted. East, South, where is it? So East is upper left, South is lower left, and then kind of lost my I lost my scroll bar here. Then if we go to the right, wow, I really need a scroll bar. If we go to the right, we have Midwest on top, or I'm sorry, we have Midwest on bottom and West on top. And you can see, so that's what we have. You can start to see how these things get unwieldy just in terms of their sheer size and trying to navigate them. I have my, I usually have my zoom set at 125, so it's not like I have super old man kind of font going on here. It's just, it's hard to stay on top of this stuff. But there's a very nice bracket, just taken away, just extracted from a single function taken out of the mm bracket r package. bracket r. I think that was the package. Let's make sure. Yes, bracket r. Again, a defunct kind of laying out there, not active, but that function is one that we can use to give us a visual that can be useful for our tournament if we want to add to it. Now, we're not going to have time to go through all of these, but that's a blank bracket. There is a package that also pre-populates your bracket for you. So instead of just giving you blank lines, it'll give you lines with the actual proper team and the team opponents lined up in it. And so I believe that was this one. No, it's not this one. That was on the header here. There we go. March Madness. This is the one. And again, this one doesn't have a lot of documentation either, but you'll notice here in terms of the activity, this one has been active. This one is being updated. And the reason this is important is because part of the updating is the teams that are participating in this year's tournament, which are going to be different year to year to year to year, unless you're Duke. If you're Duke, you always get in. There's a bunch of rules. There's a bunch of instructions here. Sorry, getting a little loopy. There's a bunch of instructions here. Of course, we don't read instructions on this channel, right? Unless we really need them. So this one I do believe is only on GitHub. I don't think it's on CRAN. So we are going to want to do the install from GitHub. I don't have it. So we're going to go through this together. So just let me verify that I don't have it. What's it called? March Madness. Yeah, I do not have this package. So we're going to give it a go here. I'm going to sweep my environment just because I like to come in clean when we're doing something like this. I will build a script. Normally I would just put this DevTools command in the console. You know what? I'm just going to put it in the console. I'm going to save my script. I'm going to save my scripting space for kind of more meaningful things. Let's see if I have a drop for you good people while we wait for the package to load here.
This here's my brother Jake. He's going to be staying with me for a few weeks.
Okay.
So it gave me a bunch of dependencies it also wants. This can take a while, so that's okay. Just like extracting a function from a package is a good skill to learn. Learning how to kind of deal with this is also good. So I'm going to skip those with the expectation that we'll probably, whatever we first try to do may very well fail. But if it does fail, I believe it's going to fail from one of these packages. So we'll just deal with that on a package by package basis. And that's fine. You can do that. The one caveat to that is if for some reason this package, the focal package itself fails to load, then we won't be able to. It looks to me like it's there. So let's just do a search. March Madness. Let me do a refresh here. I'm going to come into a fresh session. It looked to me like it installed. If it didn't, we might have to load some of those dependencies, which I really did not want to do. I might have just, yeah, I might have just spelled it wrong, but it did install, so that's good. We'll do a script again. And we could do this within a Quarto document, within an R markdown document, but we'll change things up a little bit here. We'll see if we don't do that. For a tutorial on how to use it, let's see if we can get that vignette, vignette. We'll see if we can get it. March March Madness. So it loads okay. That's good. Let's see what the vignette does. Hey, look at that. So this is promising. This is saying we actually have something. There's the package authors. If we wanted to cite them, we know how to cite them. So that'd be, we could do that. I mentioned this earlier. There's actually 68 technically teams. This is crazy. The number of possible brackets out of 68 teams is 9 quintillion. That just doesn't seem right, but I guess it is. We can scrape data. So this is a package that you can use if you want to engage in some statistical modeling and some predictive models for who might actually win. There is a men's and a women's tournament that are going on simultaneously. There's all kinds of things you can do here. They have some built-in predictive models. And here we get to a bracket. So this bracket is something that I'm interested in. You see names populated here, and really that's really all I'm interested in doing here with this package. If I believe I had looked down, I think there's a function called draw bracket, which is really what I wanted. I mean, we could spend a lot of time. We could spend a lot of time on this, but and play with it and have a lot of fun with it. But I think draw bracket is really what I was interested in. And we should be able to say, I think we can say what year we want. Bracket filled. League men is default. That's kind of what I'm focused on, so that's okay. Bracket empty. It looks like this is where I believe we specify. I believe this is where we specify the data that we're interested in. So I did look this up. We'll see if this works. Let's just see what draw bracket gives us, actually. Yeah, it wants something. So I think we have to give it the bracket empty. And length, 64 teams in the tournament. Now, I did come across this right before. There we go. I did come across this right before we went live, where I saw that they had these pre-built-in values. And so the bracket.empty should populate with the teams that are associated with, let's just do last year's to start with and see what that looks like. Yes, that's awesome. This is what I was really interested in. Now it's giving the teams and it's giving the seeds of those teams. And this is something that you could very easily print off and hand off to something like your internal team if you wanted to engage in gambling with your coworkers. You could at least say, hey, yes, it's gambling, and yes, it's illegal, and yes, you might be arrested, but at least I did it with R. So give me a little credit for that. So let's go to 2026 and see if it matches what we actually have for the tournament. And again, I'm going to look that up. We'll see if we can find kind of a smaller one that's, it said printable PDF, didn't it? Should have done that. We're doing our own printable PDF. We don't need that. Okay, so this one is populated kind of as we're going in the tournament, such that this last weekend we had the first round and the second round, so we do know who's in the Sweet 16, and these teams are gonna be playing this weekend, and I believe they get down to the Final Four this weekend. So it's my recollection is it's 3 weeks. Really, what I'm looking for just the left-handmost column and the right-handmost column to be populated with 1 Duke, 16 Siena, 8 Ohio State, 9 TCU. And all I'm doing for that is I'm using again, vignette is kind of explaining what's going on. But I'm just using this draw.bracket function within the March Madness package. So we'll run that and we'll zoom it so we can see. That does look, I mean, it's small for you good people, I'm sure, but I can see it. It does look like it's a match. So 1 Duke, 16 Siena, 8 OSU, 9 TCU. That's fantastic. Okay. So, I mean, how easy is that? That the function is already created for us. Again, it doesn't maybe look as we could probably get there if we could probably go in here if we want to and brand this a little bit, maybe put a logo on there, change the font. But functionally, this is all I really wanted to do. Functionally, I wanted to see if we could use R to generate an empty bracket that you can give and administer to your friends, your social network, so that you can have your own tournament. And you know, you can do this electronically as well. This is historically kind of how things have been done. Okay, there is, we're already over an hour. There is a third package that I have linked. Let me see if I can get to it quickly here. There is a third package that I did do a little exploration into that if you're interested in this kind of stuff, you might want to actually check out. And that hyperlink is available on, is it this? Yeah, it's on the New York Post image here. So if you click on that, it'll take you to a package called Bracketeer. Now, Bracketeer is not going to facilitate the production of those nice visuals that we saw with an actual visual bracket. But this looks like a really neat package in terms of managing. So if instead of just being a degenerate gambler, if you want to go all in and be like a bookie or someone that actually controls whether other people win or lose, whether they're paid or not, whether they get broken fingers or not, you could run Bracketeer. And so Bracketeer is one option for the manager of these sorts of tournaments. So you're going, and again, the coding on this, if you don't follow it and do some kind of just slowly building brackets, it can look a little intimidating, but it really isn't that bad. What you do is you specify the number of teams that are in your tournament, the number of brackets, the number of sequences that you want, and then you can go in there and update how teams have done. Did they win? Did they lose? What was the score? And then the brackets will auto update for you. So it's a neat package. It's a pretty neat package. It's not specific to the NCAA tournament, so it's okay that we didn't get to spend a lot of time on it. But certainly the first function that we looked at, and then the March Madness specific tournament that has the seeds and the teams pre-built in there for you, so it's auto-populated. I mean, I love that. I love that. So I don't know that I'll ever be in charge of a tournament like this, but if I am, that's what I'm going to use. And those of you that are out there that are gambling degenerates, if you're using it, let me know. And let me know how you did. Let me know if you won. Let me know if you won your tournament. My predictive models had two teams that came up again and again. It was Duke and Arizona. And so those are the two. I think those are the only two that I've predicted in terms of winning. These predictive models, of course, can't account for all kinds of things. So they're wrong more often than they're right, but it's fun. The process is fun. Okay, so thanks, peeps. I think next week we'll do something more traditional. Next week we'll go back to kind of how to create documents and do specific things within documents. But this was a fun little distraction for me to be able to do something that's a little different than just focused on making a report or making a paper or making a slide deck. Okay, thanks everybody. Have a good week and we'll see you next week.